Welcome to Veronica Live, and we are talking with a Veronica Live family member that we all adore, Peter Feaman. He's the Florida National Committeeman, and oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about. Peter, welcome back to Veronica Live.
Thank you. It's good to be back on your show. How are things in the Panhandle?
Well, we just talked to you and I because I'm helping the Republican Liberty Caucus. I'm their new regional director, and they want to host Congressman Dunn, and congressional candidate Rhonda Woodward is running against him. And I know I reached out to you, and the big breaking news was you said you would be the moderator for that debate. And so we are working to get Congressman Dunn to the debate table, and lots of people have reached out, and they've not been successful yet. So hopefully that'll change.
I can tell you I will be in Bay County for a luncheon on June 12th. June 20th.
Okay. And who is that group you're meeting with? I forgot.
I'm speaking at the Bay County Women's Republican luncheon
Oh, the women's
meeting.
group. Okay. Well, we might have to go to that one then for sure, because we adore you. And then,
Mark that on your calendar.
Yes. And then hopefully everything will work out and we can get Congressman Dunn to debate. Because, my philosophy, Peter, and I'm sure it's yours, and we've both been Trump people, Trump will debate everyone 50 times. It doesn't matter. And I think as a politician, it's your job to debate and let us know what you've been up to, especially if someone's running against you. So I'm not going to take no for an answer, I can tell you.
I agree. Good for you.
So you have been making news, and it's been a little scandalous, I have to say. One of the stories is RPOF now purging its own. Longtime grassroots conservative leader left out of the key national delegation committees. So I wanted you to tell us this story has you in it, Peter. What's been going on that the world needs to know?
Well, I have been on the RNC Rules Committee for 12 years. So I know the Republican National Committee rules pretty well. And I know that once each state selects their delegates for the convention, RNC Rule 41 requires that the delegates meet either in person or electronically to elect amongst the delegates, and I use the word elect, representatives to the Rules Committee, representatives to the Platform Committee, because as you know, those committees are very, very important, especially the Platform Committee.
Right.
So when our delegation in Florida became constituted, I reached out to leadership and I said, when are we going to have our meeting to elect committee representatives? And I got no response. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was in Hawaii, so I called Evan Power, and we had a chat, and he didn't say anything about a meeting to have an election. And after we hung up, about 5 hours later, I got an email saying we're going to have a meeting the following day, but he didn't say anything about an election. So I thought, okay, it said just to attend to some housekeeping matters or something to that effect. I said, okay. So then the next day, the day of the meeting, I received an email from our new interim executive director, Bill Helmick, a lobbyist associate with Evan Power. And it said, hey, don't forget about the meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. We're going to 6 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to have a meeting to discuss some housekeeping matters. Okay, fine, no problem. 15 minutes, actually 12 minutes before the meeting was to start, I got an email that said, by the way, and I've been asking for an agenda for the meeting, both Evan and Helmick never got one. And 12 minutes before the meeting, I received an email that said, we're looking forward to the meeting. Here are the people that are going to be appointed to the RNC convention committees. And they listed a man and a woman for rules, a man and a woman for platform and a few others committees, and there was no mention of me. And I quite naturally was not pleased with that, to say it mildly. I had served on the RNC Convention Rules Committee in 2016. We fought back the Never Trumpers and the Cruz people in Cleveland who wanted to blow up the convention. I served on the Convention Rules Committee in 2020, where we didn't have much to do because of the pandemic. And I've been on the RNC Rules Committee for 12 years. So quite naturally, I was shocked that I was frozen out by, as I put in my letter, some secret cabal of people and never even told about it. And that's the thing that really gets under my skin, is that having been a loyal RNC member from Florida for 12 years, you would think someone would have the courtesy or maybe the guts to pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, Pete, we're going in a different direction this convention for this reason or that reason. And I would have probably said, okay, I understand, blah, blah, blah. But they never even had the courtesy to talk to me, email me, text me in any way, shape, or form. And that's just not right.
And why do you think they're acting like this? Because I felt when, because to let the listeners, to remind them, we had Christian Ziegler that had the sexcapade, and you actually ran to be the chairman against Evan Power, and the governor set up Evan Power fully for this position. And I was helping your team because you're a trial attorney that's been doing politics forever. And after the sexcapade story that literally went global multiple times, we needed to have an adult in the room, and the governor pushed Evan. And now you're telling me Evan's not even playing fairly with you. So why is this happening? I don't understand. You are a seasoned Republican that has been working with the RNC, and you're who I want helping to lead this. And the fight, we're having so many internal fights, all around, and we've got to win November. So Peter, tell us, why is this happening?
I've been on the Republican Party of Florida Executive Committee for 20 years. 12 of which as the National Committeeman. And I have developed a tremendous grassroots following all over our great state of Florida. And honestly, I think they fear me. They know that I cannot be bought. They know that I am a true grassroots, principled conservative, and our party elites and the swamp in Tallahassee, as well as the swamp in Washington, fear those kind of politicians and those kind of people. And we must take our party back from the swamp in Tallahassee and reestablish the grassroots. We must. Or the Republican Liberty Caucus, the Republican Assembly, and other Republican groups are going to rise up because the people feel they're not being heard.
So, Peter, we've discussed in the past the importance of the Rules Committee, and one thing that you pointed out to me was that they also set the rules for the next convention in 2028 and what's going to happen then. So it's people need to understand it's an absolutely critical committee to be on, and you need somebody that knows how to push the levers and what the rules are to play by. But what's going on with RPOF? I mean, it seems, I was on the executive committee for 12 years, and it seemed over that period of time we lost the grassroots. The Sharon Day, another grassroots warrior, and that used to be the ethos of RPOF. And they've let the RECs, the county Republican executive committees, they let all of them atrophy. I mean, you talk about crazy chaos. Go to our local REC committee meetings now, because you can't get people in there that want to follow the rules, and then people come and see this chaos, and then they say
and they don't want to join.
I don't want to join. I don't want anything to do with this mess. It's a social club. It's not a political organization. And is that infected the RPOF at the executive committee level, or is it the Tallahassee cabal has has taken over, and David Ramba and his consulting group now run RPOF, basically. Is that your take?
I think it's the Tallahassee. I think it's the Tallahassee cabal. But you made a good point, John, about the rules that are made at this convention are forward-looking. And forward-looking, Donald Trump, who I've been a big fan of and have supported unabashedly since 2016 at the convention, forward-looking, Mr. Trump will not be a candidate. Who will be a candidate? Ron DeSantis. So Ron DeSantis wants to pack the Rules Committee with people who might be able to affect rules that will favor him over other potential candidates for president in 2028. And I think that's what's going on. And it's too bad because I've never been an enemy of Ron DeSantis, but he endorsed Evan for chairman over me. And now I guess this is what's going on. It's too bad.
Well, I have to say it's a turnoff. It's a total turnoff. I was turned off by how the January elections went down, and this is just adding to it, Peter. I mean, I
want to give a shout out, and I'm glad you said it's a turnoff. It is, but I'm going to give a shout out to Jimmy Petronas because before that election in January, Jimmy Petronas called me personally, and he said, "Pete, I think what they're doing is wrong. I'm not going to publicly endorse Evan." He says, I'm not going to publicly endorse you, but I think what they're doing is wrong. And he said, fight the good fight. So kudos to Jimmy Petronas.
Well, I agree.
For governor.
I've known Jimmy for many years, Peter, and Captain Anderson's up here, and I knew him from a more social aspect before he got into politics. But he is a stand-up guy, and unfortunately, we seem to be lacking that in the party leadership these days.
Yes, but I think he's an exception.
So, is there anything anyone can do? When is your term up? Isn't it in the fall? Your term is finally up?
Well, that's an interesting point you make, too, because at our last RNC meeting in Houston, I passed a rule change which extended the terms of all the National Committeemen and Committeewomen until after the election.
Great.
And I think, but it has to be passed by the Convention Rules Committee as well. And I think they wanted me out, didn't want me around that long because I'm a threat to them. And so by not putting me on the Rules Committee, that makes it that much harder for me to pass that rule change. So as it looks like now, my term will end after the convention.
Okay. Well, it seems there seems to be a little bit of a conflict, I would think, because, President Trump is basically taking control of the leadership of the RNC, with Laura Trump and in there, and who's definitely watching out for his interests. So how much influence do they have versus the state party members that make up the rest of the RNC?
I thought they would have a lot of influence on this, but apparently they had they must have done some horse trading because we know that Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, is the delegation chairman, and Kimberly Guilfoyle is on the platform committee. So in order to get those two in, they must have traded away me and allowed Evan to come in. Because Evan's never been a friend of Mr. Trump. Let's just be honest. When he was a delegate in 2016, he made comments about, well, I only have to vote for Mr. Trump for three ballots, and then I'm free to vote for whoever I want.
Yeah, Evan, I've never been a fan of Evan. I've known him for a long time and seen him in action, and it's embarrassing to say the least. But so where is the state party? Is it recoverable? I mean, can we get things changed to get back to normal order, or what I consider normal order?
It's recoverable. Because guess what? Evan's up for election in January. He's got to get reelected in 7 months.
Yeah, the sad part is, Peter, the way RPOF works is usually, the chairman is succeeded by the vice chairman, and our current vice chairman is totally useless. He was a complete zero as the chairman of the State Committee Men and State Committee Women's Caucus. He did absolutely nothing in 4 years, and then somehow managed to get elected to be vice chairman. And if that's the kind of leadership we have coming, I just don't see any future in the organization other than a money funnel for the party.
And well, stay tuned. We don't know who else might be running. There's a lot that can happen between now and then.
So was there anything else that came out from the RNC meeting that you want to share with the listeners?
At the RNC meeting we had in Houston, of course, Rana had resigned.
We were happy about that one.
Yes, I supported Harmeet Dillon against her in January earlier this year. Of course, we were not successful there. So I asked Harmeet if she was interested in picking up the mantle, and she said no. And so they came up with the general counsel to the RNC, a fellow named Michael Whatley. He had run for co-chair of the RNC and lost that race to Drew McKissick, who's the chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. I thought Drew would have been a great choice to succeed as chair, but apparently Mr. Trump liked Michael Whatley. I have nothing negative to say about Michael Whatley. Okay, I think he'll do fine. And bringing in Lara Trump was a good move because she's a great money raiser and very savvy. So
No, I've been impressed.
That worked out okay.
So I wanted to transition to why, I'm just so nervous about November, and then Trump's been on this trial in New York that has just been atrocious.
And you're a lawyer, right?
Yes.
Peter, so.
Oh my gosh, Peter, do tell.
What a
I'm not a
travesty.
lawyer, and it's been horrific.
Yes, and I'm not just a lawyer. I've been a trial attorney for 45 years. I've had all kinds of trials. I've had trials that have lasted a month long. Have trials that have lasted 3 weeks. I mean, all jury trials. I'm a seasoned trial attorney, and what is happening in New York is an absolute travesty in both cases. They had a ridiculous civil fraud case, and we don't have the time on this particular segment to go through it all. But just know this, when Alan Dershowitz, a staunch Democrat, is outraged over what's going on in the courtroom against Donald Trump, you know for certain that this is a complete miscarriage of justice and completely political. We have now devolved into a country that puts political opponents on trial for non-events in order to try to remove them from the political scene. Are we living in Honduras? Are we living in Colombia?
I've been saying that for a couple months now, that we clearly are a third world country. And last night I completely lost it when those documents were released saying that they could go after Trump and Melania and Barron and go in with lethal force. I was like, what the hell is going on, Peter?
Yes, and we're devolving into dictatorship. And the words of Ronald Reagan are absolutely correct. We're never more than one generation away from losing our freedom. And as I tell people, I just spoke actually this week to a We the People for America organization in Central Florida. And I said, folks, this is serious. We're not just fighting for the heart and soul of the country. We're fighting for the survival of a free republic. Do you get that? And so when people get disaffected with the process, and because they don't like Mitch McConnell or some of the other folks, they say, well, I'm just going to stay home. We have to tell them, sir, madam, you don't have that luxury to stay home. If you stay home, that's a vote for the other side. And if the other side wins, we're done. And that is not an overstatement. We will lose this country. Just look around at what's happened under the Biden administration and the loss of our freedoms. Are you kidding me? We could go to a liquor store, but we couldn't go to church during the pandemic. If we didn't get a vaccination, we couldn't shop. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. If we didn't wear a mask, you couldn't get on an airplane. Are you kidding me? Folks, look around to see what's happened. And we see now how we were flat out lied to by Fauci and his henchmen about the origins of this lab leak. Why? Because he was secretly diverting funds to support that lab over there in China. Folks, we are losing our country, and Donald Trump is the only man on God's green earth who can save this country from destruction if he does not win. Period. End of discussion. Thank you very much for having me. It's great being on. No, I'm still here.
well, Peter, you make a good point, though. If we don't show up, the other side is showing up. Yesterday they had primary election in Georgia, and Fani Willis won her race for district attorney for the Democrats.
I was ill.
So she'll probably win in November. So their side showing up, and we better show up, or we're going to get more Fani Willises, and Alvin Braggs if we don't. If we just sit here and say, yeah, well, we can't do anything about it,
So, yes. And so here's what I would say to folks who are disaffected with the Bay County REC or any of the other RECs across the state. I wish this show was syndicated across the state.
Me too.
Yes, I understand your discontentment. I understand that there's a lot of division, okay? It's now the time to put that behind it. And whether you support Congressman Neil Dunn or his primary opponent, after the primaries are done, we are going to support 1,000% whoever our Republican candidates are, period, end of discussion. And that would include Neil Dunn, whether you like him or not.
Well, he's had my vote every time. So
if he's the nominee.
Right, exactly. So back to Trump and the deadly force and going into Mar-a-Lago, because Trump, I know you've been to Mar-a-Lago. Today they've been saying that, DOJ, they wanted deadly force. The Dems want to take him out, that potentially an assassination. I'm like, what is going on with all of this talk? It is so unsettling. It is so unsettling. And Garland needs to go, and Wren, or whatever his name is, the FBI director needs to go, Wren. So are you not upset? Because you've been to these places. I never thought Mar-a-Lago was unsecure. And then they were rifling. They took Barron's comics. They rifled through, they took stuff from Melania, the passports, all of it. And they're saying it's because he had all this evidence. And then lovely Comey, Mr. former FBI director's been on the news and yesterday, everywhere, trying to save his legacy of lies. So what are you thinking, Peter? Because you live in this down there, and you've rubbed elbows with all these people.
I've been to Mar-a-Lago, dozens of times. Okay, and there's no need for that kind of. It's not a fortress. You pull in off A1A, and there's a gate there. And you say, hi, we're the U.S. Marshals and the FBI. We're here to exercise a search warrant. And you drive down the driveway, you walk in the front door, and you exercise it. It's a disgrace. And it should alarm everybody. And if you're an independent or Democrat, just think this. You're next. They're not after Donald Trump. They're after us. Donald Trump just happens to be in the way. But they're coming after us because they're elites and they know better. What do we know? The grassroots. And that's why we need to lead a revolution for the grassroots to rise up. Now, if the FBI is listening to this conversation, I'm not saying we need an armed revolution. Okay, at least not yet.
Well, we just had a guest on, Peter, that really thinks, and I'm worried too, that especially if Trump, hopefully he does win. I pray that there's going to be violence all throughout this summer.
Oh, there'll be violence, but it'll be by the Democrats.
Right.
That's where the violence
correct.
is going to come from.
Just like there was violence on Inauguration Day. I was in Washington, D.C. when Mr. Trump got inaugurated on 2016. There was violence all over the place. But that's what Marxists do. If they don't get their way, they resort to violence. This is all Marxist. This is all radical Democrats. And now the word radical and Democrats are one and the same. The Democrat Party has become completely radical, completely Marxist.
I equate the Democrat Party to the Communist Party. I'm from, I'm 69, Peter. Okay, so I go back to 60s and 70s idea of commies, and that's exactly what I equate the Democrat Party to be. And I think it needs to be, for lack of a better word, exterminated, because it has no redeeming value whatsoever, and I don't think it can be possibly saved.
Yeah, because they don't compromise. They expect us to compromise, but
right.
They never do. And up in your neck of the woods, you've got a lot of retired military there, big military presence.
We do.
Okay, who all have relatives, friends, neighbors, parents, grandparents that fought and defended this country. And I'll be darned if I'm going to let their sacrifices have been in vain. They would have. My dad, who won the Distinguished Flying Cross in World War II, flew 35 missions as a bomber pilot in his B-17. He's turning around in his grave. And I will not let my father's sacrifice, I will not let his sacrifice and the sacrifice of millions of others be in vain in 2024. We need everybody out there to vote.
Well, I wanted to ask you a final question about who do you think the VP pick is going to be? They say Trump has made the decision. Has anybody whispered in your ear, Peter? Is it Vance? Is it Tim Scott? Is it Rubio? Is it Governor Burgum from North Dakota? Or is it somebody off the wall like Tulsi Gabbard?
I would like to announce publicly, despite the rumors that are going around, that it's not me.
You'd be a good VP.
Oh my gosh, or the Attorney General.
I'd love to be Attorney General. That'd be fun. Anyway, Pam Bondi would be a great Attorney General. She was a great Attorney General for Florida.
Well, and Trump loves her, so that could happen.
Yeah. But as far as Vice President, I'll tell you, it will not be somebody from Florida. Because under our Constitution, we would lose Florida's electoral votes.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
From the same state. Two candidates from the same state. The founders did not want states like Virginia and New York to have too much influence, so they wrote in that if you have two candidates from the same state, because there's a lot of rivalry between the colonies back then, then you would lose those electoral votes. So I can state with, I think, sufficient certainty that it will not be, therefore, Senator Scott, Senator Rubio. Okay. It's nice to hear their names because they are very well respected nationwide. Right. But so I think a front runner is, you want my honest opinion, Senator Scott from South Carolina.
I've heard that, but he's not feisty enough for me, so I'm not a fan. I mean, I love him,
like
but
Sarah Huckabee Sanders is ours.
Veronica.
What?
Veronica Kemeny.
Oh.
Nobody is feisty enough for you.
Well, the bullfighter / general would come out and handle it, I'm telling you. So I would, but I'd take Ambassador to Paris or London first. So final thoughts, Peter, because, we've got to win it in November to save our country. And, it's going to take prayer. It's going to take voters not being lazy. And, I'm not praying enough.
Two thoughts. We've got to work like it's up to us, and we have to pray like it's up to God.
Okay.
That's
beautiful.
Number one. Number two, throughout history, if you look at world history, really freedom is not the natural order of things. So therefore, every generation is called, and every generation must step up and answer the call to defend freedom. And freedom is under attack right now in America like it's never been. And it's time for every God-fearing, red-blooded American to now answer the call, step up, and vote for Republicans in November if you love freedom, want freedom, and don't want to lose freedom.
Well, you said it wonderfully, and we've been talking with Peter Feaman. He's our Florida National Committeeman, and he's been leading the charge for years in our great state of Florida. And we thank you, Peter, for coming back. We'll be calling again to have you, and hopefully you'll be here at the debate as the moderator for Congressman Dunn and congressional candidate.
I would love to, and I hope to see you and your audience at the women's luncheon.
Yes, I'll
20th.
go for sure. We'll be there.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us.
John, you're not a woman. You're not a woman, nor are you identifying as one, but I hope you can make it too.
Okay. Well, I won't identify as a woman, but they do let men come to the meetings.
Yes.
You just can't speak.
That's the way it should be. We thank Peter Feaman for joining Veronica Live. Thank you. We'll be right back.